Hi, I'm Santo Biswas. I'm a working professional with 24 years of work ex with about 15 years in the Tata Group. I'm currently doing my doctoral studies in practice track with Indian Institute of Management COE Board. I'm happy to present this video with provides a glimpse on my research work.
Examines the importance of organizational foundations in shaping how organizations withstand disruption, adapt, and recover over time, particularly in a perma-crisis environment where resilience must be crisis agnostic. Over the last decade, organizations across the world have been operating in an environment of continuous disruption. From pandemics and geopolitical shocks to technological change and market volatility. In such conditions, the ability of organizations to withstand disruption, adapt, and continue to perform has become critically important. Yet, a striking pattern emerges. While some organizations absorb disruption, adapt, and recover, others facing similar conditions struggle or fail. This puzzle came into sharp focus during the pandemic and in the years that followed. This observation forms the starting point of my research on organizational resilience. An alarming trend in crisis has emerged in this VUCA world, where it has increased in intensity, frequency, complexity, and uncertainty. Given the highly interconnected nature of our world, crises are increasingly no longer isolated or short-lived. They overlap, recur, and often emerge in unpredictable ways. This condition is often described as a perma-crisis, where organizations must operate under sustained uncertainty rather than episodic disruption. In such a context, traditional crisis response thinking is no longer sufficient. Much of the existing thinking on resilience treat it as a reaction, something organizations do after a crisis occurs. My research builds on more recent work that views resilience as a process, unfolding over time through stages. This means resilience is not a single capability, but a sequence of responses that evolve as crisis unfolds. When a crisis begins to unfold, organizations first engage in early signal recognition to understand whether a disruption is real and consequential. Effective response, however, begins with initial buffering, the ability to absorb shocks, stabilize operations, and prevent immediate breakdown. This buffering creates the space for deeper sense making and judgment, followed by the mobilization and coordination of resources and adaptive responses as conditions continue to unfold. Crucially, my research shows that resilience is sustained only when organizations routinize what they learn, embed successful responses into everyday practices, systems, and capabilities. The effectiveness of this entire sequence depends on strong underlying foundations, which I describe as the bedrock of organizational resilience. The first bedrock is transformational leadership. Such leaders provide clear direction, build trust, and foster confidence during times of uncertainty. They help people make sense of what is happening, stay motivated, and align around shared purpose. In simple terms, transformational leaders do four things well. They inspire, they act with integrity, they encourage new thinking, and they care about people. This enables organizations to respond decisively and yet thoughtfully across different stages of a crisis. Second bedrock is experiential diversity in top management teams. Leaders who have worked across different functions, organizations, and industries bring varied perspectives to the table. During crisis, this diversity allows teams to interpret signals differently, challenge assumptions, and explore alternative courses of action. Rather than everyone thinking alike, diverse experience creates a compounding effect that improves decision quality and adaptability, which otherwise is known as diversity bonus. The third bedrock is organizational slack. Slack refers to resource buffers such as financial flexibility, spare capacity, or access to borrowing and support. These buffers help organizations absorb shocks, avoid panic driven decisions, and create space for experimentation. Importantly, Slack enables organizations not just to survive crisis, but to reconfigure and adapt when conditions demand change. Among the several contributions of this research, I highlight two central ones. From an academic perspective, the study addresses a core puzzle: why organizations facing similar crises often display very different resilient trajectories over time. It does so by conceptualizing resilience as a process and by advancing a foundational resource perspective that explains how underlying organizational conditions shape these divergent outcomes. From a practice perspective, the framework offers leaders a structured way to think about resilience: what to build in advance, what to activate during disruption, and how to strengthen organizations after a crisis. The central message of my thesis is this: resilience is not a moment of response, but a trajectory. It is shaped by how organizations build foundations in advance, buffer shocks when crisis strikes, activate and reconfigure resources under pressure, and routinize learning over time. In a world of continuous disruption, it is this bedrock that allows organizations not just to survive crisis, but to adapt, recover, and emerge stronger across successive challenges. This thesis has been informed by a broader set of scholarly engagements and peer interactions to help refine the ideas presented here.
Would like to also take this opportunity to thank my RSC committee, the RSC chair, Professor Rupert Gupta, and the RSC members, Professor Surya Patti, Professor Nancy George, for their invaluable guidance through this research journey. I'd also like to thank my TEC chair, Professor Unni Krishnan, and uh, the external examiner, Professor Sushant Mishra, for their invaluable guidance during the thesis evaluation process. Thank you.